Hey, happy Sunday, eYouth. Welcome to Beanie Talks. My name is Carlos.
And I'm Elfian.
Beanie Talks is the time of the week where we gather to talk about the Bible while those of us who remember wear their beanies.
I forgot.
We're so glad you're joining us today. Let's jump right in.
Yes, we have a new series called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do.
Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you don't know what to do about a situation? If so, stay tuned in.
So we want to show you a video and let us know if you can relate. Watch this.
All right, question for you. Who are you most likely to act that way with?
Come on, be honest. I'll be honest. Siblings.
Yes, family.
Especially when I was younger. I am the oldest of 5, so I have 4 brothers, and I didn't care that they were stronger and bigger than me. I would still wrestle with them, and I would do try to find ways to beat them, because we were always going at it.
Yeah, and I'm the youngest of 6, and I got into so many moments just like the video with my siblings. And I just think it's very normal for us to be our realist with our family. And sometimes what that means is actually the worst version of ourselves, right? Where we are the least patient, the least kind, the least thoughtful to the people that are closest around us.
Yeah, so I remember whenever we'd go out or whatever, people would tell my mom, "Oh man, your daughter is so good, so well behaved. She's a pleasure to have around." And then my mom would respond, "Really? You should see her at home." So I think what she was saying is, at home, I was the real version of myself, which was not very polite, and I would talk back and fight with my brothers. But when I was with other people, I'd behave a little bit better. So she was keeping it real.
Yeah.
But we have to ask ourselves, no matter what the situation in our home or what we're around or what's going on, how does it affect me? How does my family situation, my home, where I live, who I live with, how does that affect me? For example, if your family is going to go out to eat hamburgers, but you're a vegetarian, how does it affect you? Are you going to be okay with that and celebrate still a family going out, or are you going to be bitter about it because they chose hamburgers knowing that you can't eat hamburgers, so you have to stick to fries? And I think the question again is, how does it affect me? And so what do you do about it? What do you do when you are in a tough situation at home, when stuff at home is tough and hard? What do you do when the mood is off, or when you're part of the reason why there's so much tension happening? What do you do when you don't know what to do?
So we're going to be looking at the life of Joseph in this series. And Joseph had a wild life.
Yes.
And his family had some drama. And there are many moments in Joseph's life where he probably had that same question. I don't know what to do in this situation.
Because just like your family and my family, the truth is that family is hard.
Yes.
Family is complicated. And Joseph is a perfect example of a family that was complicated and that was hard. That's what I love about the Bible. The Bible keeps it real. Real life, real stories, real problems, And so Joseph is this guy who is just like us, finds himself in kinds of situations where he doesn't know what to do. And his story is wild, like Netflix show worthy, like soap opera, telenovela, it is wild. There's a murder plot, there is, false accusation, there's slavery, there's plot twist, and the drama doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And so in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about that. But today our focus is that it all starts with the drama in his family. So we're going to kind of tell you a little backstory about that. So let me give you some background. Joseph was one of 12 sons who all had Jacob as their dad. Now, Jacob's story was complicated. He fell in love with a woman named Rachel, who but was tricked into marrying Rachel's sister Leah instead. But Jacob loved Rachel, so he worked for her father for 7 years so he can marry her too. If you're keeping count, that leaves Jacob with 2 wives, and they were sisters, sister wives. So sounds a lot like the show on TLC. There were 2 other women he never married as well, but also had children with. Plot twist, Rachel, the wife Jacob loved the most, couldn't have children. While all these other women gave him kids, Rachel couldn't until all of a sudden she was pregnant with Joseph. He was like the miracle baby, and Jacob, the dad, was crazy about him. He loved Joseph. That means in this family with 1 father, 4 mothers, 12 sons, there was some tension because it was no secret who the favorites were. This is where we pick up in the life of Joseph in Genesis 37.
So we're going to be looking at Genesis 37, and we're going to be reading an incident where Joseph starts to have these dreams that he then starts to tell his brothers who are older and his parents. But before even doing that, we find that Isaac loved Joseph so much and was so Jacob loved Joseph so much that he made Joseph a special vest, a multicolored vest, and this just added to the jealousy and the hate that his older brothers had. So here's Joseph with his multicolored vest, and he starts to have these dreams, and we're going to look at his explanation of these dreams here in verse 6 through 8 of chapter 37, and I will read it for us. It says this: He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brother said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and what he said. And so here, Joseph has these dreams where he's essentially dreaming about one day being in a place of authority over his older brothers.
Like having power over them.
To the point where they're going to bow down to him.
Yeah.
And so clearly this just adds to their jealousy and their hate of Joseph. Joseph was clearly not being thoughtful as to how his dream would impact his older brothers.
Yeah, and so the vibe was harsh. There was definitely tension, and we read it. It says they hated him all the more. And so not only was Joseph his dad's favorite and had like a special code. It's like if your parents were to get one of you like the latest model car or latest brand of shoes that's super expensive, but would forget all your other siblings. That would be really sad. But like you said, Joseph wasn't being considerate. So there was tension in the family, and he wasn't being considerate because I think that, like us sometimes, he was like hyper aware of how we are being treated and not really aware of how it affects everybody else in the family. So he knew how he was being treated, and I think the reason why he shared that dream was kind of like, you know, we all do it. We kind of brag and we kind of want to be like, yeah, look at me, you know? But he really was just aware of himself, but really wasn't aware of how he was affecting his brothers and his family. And why we're learning about this and why it's so important, I think, especially on the story, is because, again, we start with the story of Joseph, but it all starts with the family drama that's never been dealt with, the tension that's never been dealt with. It's just always been there, but nobody's ever dealt with it. And so we want to show you, and why we're learning this is because to show you that family has always been complicated. Yeah. 2, to teach us to pay attention to how our actions and our words affect the people that we live with. And 3, to remind us that tension left unresolved will never just go away. It will actually escalate into something bigger, and we'll find more about that in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so the big takeaway of this first part of Joseph's story is that we would do ourselves so much good if we began to pay attention to the way our actions are impacting those in our own home. And so we see this modeled by Jesus, and we also even see it taught in the New Testament. And so we want to just highlight a verse that can help us with this natural desire to be selfish when it comes to our families and just our own experience, so we want to read Philippians 2:3 through 8, and Paul writes this, and he says, "Who, being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." So who is Paul talking about here?
Jesus.
Yeah, he's talking about Jesus and the example that Jesus set for us, who being in the very nature is God. Jesus was equal with God. Jesus was God. He did not use that high position to mistreat others. Matter of fact, he actually gave his life for everyone else. And so we see in Jesus the opposite of what Joseph was doing. Joseph was being self-focused. He was excited about his coat. He was excited about his dreams.
Just thinking about himself.
He was purely thinking about himself, and he wasn't thinking about how he was affecting others. People that he probably genuinely cared about.
So this is the bottom line. Pay attention to how you affect your family. Again, pay attention to how you affect your family, because the truth is there is a role you play in your family. And I love that we have Jesus' example. He humbled himself. He was the one that, instead of taking power, surrendered it. And I think so we have a lot to learn in how we treat others, especially others that are in relationship with us in our family. So how do we do this? What do we do when we don't know what to do in our house, in our family, where we live? Well, I think we start by paying attention to how we see ourselves. Right? Start there. How do you see yourself? And is it all about you? Or are you paying attention to how you're affecting others? And finally, I think this is the hardest one of all, but invite someone else to speak into how we treat our families. For me, this was hard. When my youth mentor back in the day said, "Ilsean, the way that you talk to your mom is disrespectful." Like, it was hard to hear it, but I'm so grateful that they brought it up, because then I was able to really be aware of it and be like, oh, why am I? It's because I'm so angry, or because I'm so frustrated, or, so it allowed me to do that.
And the only way people are going to be able to speak into your life that way is if you start to do life with them. And that is why we encourage you and we invite you to gather with us on Wednesdays. Wednesdays we're doing small groups here at Evergreen. We're also doing online Zoom group at the same time, same day. So whatever you can do, we invite you to be a part of that, because it's fun, because we get to experience things together, but because it could lead to, or probably most importantly, it could lead to having people in your life that love you and are going to be able to help you with this and say, hey, what role are you playing in your family? How are you impacting others? Right.
So, what if we paid attention to how we affect others? What if everyone paid attention to how they affect others? We wouldn't have this mass problem, We would care about the interests of others. And we would put others first. So with that in mind, maybe, there is a lot of drama at home. the hope that we have is that Jesus is with us through it all, but also that he gives us the people that we need, like small groups, to be able to deal with some of that tension, or to be able to say, Jesus, help me with this drama with my family. So there's hope in him, and he's a restorer of families.
Amen. Yeah.
And he uses families, like we're going to see in Joseph, he uses families to bring about the hope and the promise of his word.
Yeah. Guys, we love you guys. We see you guys as family. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the main service today, we invite you guys to, because we made a big announcement that we'd love for you guys to hear.
Make sure if you haven't listened to it that you listen to it.
So check it out. It's on the Evergreen YouTube.
We love you.